Now, as I was rigging up rods for largemouth fishing and smallmouth fishing, one thing that I realized is that there's a bait that will stay on my deck all season long. From ice out through the spawn, there is one technique that will never come off the deck of my boat, and that is a jerkbait. And in today's video, I'm going to break down everything you need to know about fishing a jerkbait to have success on your home bodies of water, and really break down why this technique is so effective and how you guys can utilize it to have success as well. Now, if you guys don't know who I am, my name is Benjamin Nowak, and this channel is dedicated to teaching you bass fishing tips, taking you on trips, and teaching you about techniques such as jerkbait fishing during the spring. So if you guys enjoy that style of content, please consider subscribing to the channel and growing this community. And also go down there in that comment section and let me know what your favorite jerkbait and color combination is, because I'm always looking forward to that next bait that maybe I haven't tried that will give me some more success. But without further ado, let's dive into this thing. Now, as we start to talk about spring jerkbait fishing, I really want to start by talking about why I believe this technique is so effective. And really the key for me is the versatility of a jerkbait. Regardless of warming water temps or cooling temperatures, regardless of fish activity, and regardless of where fish are located, in my opinion, a jerkbait is one of the most effective techniques that you can cater to the mood or activity level of the fish. And so to me, that is why a jerkbait is so effective, especially during the springtime when you have those changing conditions, those ever-changing conditions, ever-changing moods of the fish. A jerkbait, you can really cater to those bass to get them to bite. Whether it's super, super cold water and those fish are really lethargic, you can soak a jerkbait for a long time. Whether that water temp is warming and those fish are on the move, they're feeding really aggressively, you can fish that bait a lot more quickly. A jerkbait is one of those techniques that you can really utilize in a bunch of different situations, in different activity levels and different water temperatures to get those fish to bite. You can also use this technique with live scope or without, and it's equally as effective. So to me, a jerkbait is one of the most versatile approaches and unique lures that you're going to fish during the springtime. Now, before we dive into more of the specifics, I want to start by going over the gear that I'm using. And there's really two main setups. One is a bait casting setup and the other is a spinning setup. And when I go to pick my jerkbait rod, I don't have to go with the most expensive rod on the market. In my opinion, a jerkbait is one of those techniques where you really don't need a lot of sensitivity or feel. It's more so about the action of that rod and your ability to cast a bait a long distance. So what I'm throwing my jerkbait on is a TFO Option Bass series. This is their medium line of rods, and it's perfect for fishing a jerkbait. And the reason that I like this is that it's a little bit softer and slower than some of the more expensive actions. And one of the reasons to me that's important is because it bends deeper into the blank. So this is a 7-foot medium. They call it a fast, but it's more of a moderate fast action. It bends a little bit further down into the blank, and it's not quite as sensitive as their Resolve Taction or their Centra Bass series. To me, that's really important because when you get bit on a jerkbait, you want to have that rod bend a little bit deeper down into the blank. You still want it to be fast or moderate fast so you can work that bait effectively and get it to snap and dart side to side. But having a rod that bends like the top 30 or 35% of the blank is going to help keep those fish pinned on small 6 and 8 size treble hooks. So the TFO 7-foot medium Option Bass series is the rod that I'm going with. Then the reel that I'm going with is a high speed gear ratio 7 or 8 speed gear ratio reel. To me, that's important so you can pick up that line really quickly when that fish eats it and is coming towards you. And then I'm fishing it on 10 or 12 pound test fluorocarbon line. On this setup right now, I have 10 pound test line, but really 10, 12 pound test line is where you want to be on your bait casting setup. And then on my spinning rod setup, I'm going with the TFO Professional Series 7-foot medium light. Now, I'm going to a spinning rod depending on the bait size that I'm fishing, if I'm fishing a little bit smaller bait, or if I really need to get distance away from the boat. To me, going to a spinning rod is going to give you the ability to cast that bait a little bit further, and you also have a little bit better drag on a spinning rod than you would a bait caster. I kind of interchange both of these mainly depending on the weight of the jerkbait that I'm fishing, but if I do have to get a little bit more distance or I'm noticing those fish are getting really boat shy, I'll go to the spinning rod because I can cast that bait further. Now again, 7 foot in length, the medium light, it's a little bit lighter power rod, and it bends pretty deep into the blank, so it allows me to keep those fish pinned, and these are like number 8 or 10 size treble hooks on this Megabass jerkbait. One thing that you'll notice on my spinning reel though is that I'm going to 100% fluorocarbon. I have no backing, it's not braid to a leader. I'm going 100% fluorocarbon. The reason for that is fluorocarbon is going to sink, so as I'm trying to fish that bait, it's going to allow me to fish that bait more evenly through the column. There's not going to be any braid that's going to cause that bait to ride up. And also, because that fluorocarbon has some stretch to it, I'm less likely to pull those hooks out of that fish's mouth. Then a 2500 or a 3000 size spinning reel is going to be perfect for this setup. But what you'll notice is that there's a 100% fluorocarbon line on my spinning and bait casting setup, because that line sinks and allows me to get that bait down and work that bait a lot more effectively. Now that we've talked about the gear that I'm using, there are really four main things that I consider when I'm fishing or choosing a jerkbait for the early spring. The first one, and in my opinion, most crucial aspect of fishing a jerkbait during the early spring, is the cadence or retrieve that you use with this bait. In my opinion, this is going to be dictated by the temperature of the water, the activity or aggression of the fish, and really the conditions of the day that you're fishing. And this is going to make the difference to allow you to continue to catch fish in these changing conditions. Whether it's cold water, warming water, it's sunny, it's cloudy, using different cadences, speeds, and retrieves are going to allow you to trick these fish that would otherwise not bite your bait. Let me give you guys an example of this really quickly. My buddy Caleb was up here fishing probably 3 or 4 years ago now, and we were on this really pressured fishery. We could get these fish to come up to our jerkbait, they'd look at it for a long time, but I wasn't catching the amount of fish that Caleb was catching, and I wasn't catching the caliber of fish that Caleb was fishing. Now mind you, we were fishing the same jerkbait side by side, and Caleb was catching more fish than I was catching. The difference being the retrieve that he was using. He was using a little bit slower retrieve, he was fishing that bait more slowly, and then one thing that he was doing that was a little bit sneaky was in his retrieve, he would use the occasional pull with his jerkbait. Now what this does with your jerkbait when you're fishing it through the water column, snap, 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 darts to the side, and then when you pull that bait, it causes it to just scoot forward. Well, this small change allowed him to catch fish that I wasn't able to trigger, and it's things like that that you can do to your jerkbait cadence or retrieve to help trigger more bites. This can be talked about in a variety of different situations, whether the water is cold and you need to let that jerkbait sit a lot longer, whether it's really warm and you need to work that bait more quickly, or you need to use really hard aggressive snaps. Paying attention to the cadence and retrieve is the most critical aspect of jerkbait fishing to help you catch more fish. The second most important thing when you're jerkbait fishing during the springtime is understanding the action that your jerkbait has underwater. And while these two baits might look similar, this is the Berkley Stunner 112 plus 1, and this is the Megabass Vision 110 plus 1. Even though they look similar, these baits have unique actions and characteristics underwater that cause them to trigger fish in different ways. Now the Megabass, and one of the most popular jerkbaits on the market, is going to have a very crisp, refined action. What I mean by that is when you fish this bait, it's going to snap and settle with very limited secondary shimmy or action underwater, as opposed to something like the Berkley Stunner 110 or 112 plus 1, which has like a secondary shimmy. When you work this bait, it's going to have like a roll or wiggle side to side. It might seem subtle, but paying attention to that action underwater could make the difference between getting bites or not. I've seen times when they eat a 112 plus 1 when they won't eat the Megabass Vision. So understanding the action of the bait can be very important when you're jerkbait fishing. Going beyond that, understanding the different body profiles that are going to impact the action that a bait has. Generally speaking now, when it comes to action when picking out your jerkbaits, baits with flatter sides, similar to cranking, are going to have less roll and a tighter action, as opposed to rounder baits, which are going to have more roll and more flash. The other important thing to note is the bill style that you're using. Shorter bills with a more rounded lip are going to have a lot more aggressive action, as opposed to longer bills, which are going to have more muted action side to side. So depending on the action that you're choosing, depending on the action that you're looking for out of your bait, you can choose different jerk baits that will have different actions to trigger those fish to bite. As that water is colder, I'm looking for baits with a little bit less action. As that water starts to warm up, I'm looking for baits that maybe are a little bit more aggressive or have more action. And finally, one thing about longer billed baits too, and I mentioned this in my last video about fishing wood, those longer billed baits will actually come through wood a lot more effectively than these shorter billed baits. So that doesn't really have a whole lot to do with action, but it does have to do with the way these baits come through cover. That longer billed bait is going to actually deflect a lot more effectively off of wood cover than those shorter, rounder billed baits. Before we dive into point 3, let's start to talk about some of my favorite jerk baits. Now, obviously, a Vision 110 plus 1 is a staple. Like if you're picking a jerk bait to fish for cold water fish, whether it's largemouth or smallmouth, a Vision 110 plus 1 pretty much has to be in your boat. Especially up here in the north, those fish like that little bit deeper diving jerkbait, the 110 plus one, I have probably 5 or 6 of in my box in different colors. This color here is Eleggy Bone, has that purple bluish back, and then it has chartreuse on the belly. And as you guys can tell, this one's been eaten quite a bit. The other one I like, I believe, is the HT Tennessee Shad. Just really natural colors, and a little bit of chartreuse on the belly is particularly effective, especially around smallmouth. Another bait that I've had a ton of success with over the past couple of years, if you guys have been around the channel, has been this Berkley Stunna. Both the 112 regular, especially when I'm fishing a little bit shallower, or this 112 plus one when I'm fishing a little bit deeper. It's a bait that does have a little more secondary action. It tends to have a shimmy, especially when that bait is setting more still. And I believe that there are situations where this bait will outfish, I've seen it outfish the Megabass Vision 110 plus one. And then another bait that I really, really like, especially as the water starts to warm up a little bit, is this Jackal Re-Range. This is a bait that I'm gonna pick up when that water is in the 50s. It has a ton of flash side to side, and it just seems to trigger really big fish to bite it. And I don't have any of the deeper model ones, but the shallow build one, you can sort of sink down to those fish. And I've had a ton of success on this Jackal Re-Range, both in the RT Perch color, and this is the something RT Ugly Minnow. I don't know what it's called. It's a really gross color, but I've had a lot of success on this color right here. And one bait that I picked up last spring that I had a lot of success on was this Megabass Vision 110 plus one Junior. It's a smaller bait. It's a smaller profile. It dives down 6 to 9 foot of water, and when those fish get really pressured, I've seen this make a difference. I've caught fish around other guys in situations where they won't bite other jerk baits, where they'll bite this 110 plus one Junior. So this is a bait where if you're looking for something a little bit different, to pick this bait up. Or I believe 6 Cents makes a 97 deep, which is a little bit heavier that you can throw on bait casting gear, and a bait that works really, really effectively for pressured finicky fish. So points 1 and 2, we're talking about the cadence and the action of that bait. Point 3 for me is going to be talking about the color that you fish. And while you might overlook color and think maybe color doesn't matter, color, especially with a jerk bait, with a bait that is sitting still and those fish get a long look at, is very, very important. I've seen it make a difference. I've seen fish that will not bite some baits, but they'll bite others just because of a color difference. And so when I'm talking about jerkbait fishing, color is very, very important. And when it's sunny and clean, I like to fish colors that are more translucent, more transparent colors. And one thing Kevin Van Dam said that will always stick with me when he was fishing the Major League Fishing event up here in Michigan was he likes to match the color of the smallmouth. So those IU style colors, the Vegas color from Booyah, where it has that greenish back and then a translucent side, then I added a little bit of chartreuse to the tail, is probably my go-to color in clean water situations. I will note, however, that for smallmouth in particular, I do like mixing in this Eleggy Bone color, your Northern Lights from Berkley, this purple-backed translucent side with chartreuse on the belly. There's something about this color that gets bit for smallmouth, and I believe it's that chartreuse. It's a very translucent profile, and it can just look like a variety of different bait fish and forage in the water. But in general, clean water situations, I'm picking a very natural, translucent style bait that matches the forage that those fish are feeding on. Now in dirty water situations, when it's cloudy outside, I'm going to more solid profile color baits, like this Jackal RT Hollow Minnow or your Table Rock Shad from Berkley. I'm going to those solid white or opaque color baits, just so those fish can see it. It stands out a little bit better in those darker conditions, and I believe it gets you a couple extra bites when the water's off-colored or it's cloudy outside. But generally speaking, if it's sunny and the water's clear, I'm going to translucent color baits. If it's dirty water or it's cloudy outside, I'm going to more opaque, flat colored baits like I mentioned right here. Before we move off of color, I want to give you guys one more quick tip that will help you put more fish in the boat, and that is adding target spots to your bait. This is something I've done for years and years, but adding something to your bait where those fish can target to come up and eat. Now typically I'm going to add that target spot towards the head of the bait or towards the middle of the bait, but having some slight difference on the bottom to give those fish something to key in on, I believe will result in more baits. And it's not just jerk baits. This could be swim baits, this could be blade baits. Having some target spot is going to convert more fish into bites in areas where you actually want them to hit. Now with the jerkbait, a lot of times they'll hit the tail of the bait. That's why I don't normally add a target spot to the back end. I'll normally add it up towards the front, but with this particular color, there's something about having a chartreuse tail on the bait that helps fish commit to it. However, with this Berkley Stunna, it has that natural orange belly. This is something I like and look for in the baits that I'm purchasing or baits that I'm modifying, that I believe helps increase my hook to line ratio, is having some sort of target spot on that bait where those fish can target this bait when they're coming up behind it to eat it. And then the fourth and final thing that I consider when I'm choosing jerkbait is going to be the size or profile of that bait that will help me trigger fish to bite. Now, in most situations, I'm picking your normal 110 size, 4.5-inch size jerkbait. But as fish get finicky, maybe you need to downsize, go to that Megabass Vision 110 Junior, or when those fish are really aggressive or keyed in on forage size, you can go larger. And I've seen going to a larger size bait make a very big difference, particularly in dirtier water or pressured fish situations. When they see a lot of jerk baits, going to something that is a little bit different, has a different profile in the water, can make a really big difference. Now, for example, instead of that 110 size, you go to a size 120, or you go to your 300 size KVD jerk baits that are a bigger size profile. Matching the size forage that they're feeding on, if they're feeding on bigger bait fish, in pressured situations can make a really, really big difference. So not always do you have to go smaller. In some situations when fish are finicky, you actually upsize to match the forage they're feeding on to catch more fish. So those are the 4 key tips that I rely on or consider when I'm fishing a jerkbait. The cadence and retrieve and changing those throughout the day to figure out what these fish are keyed in on, the action of the bait that I'm fishing, the color that I'm using, and the size or profile of the bait that I'm fishing. And hopefully with these 4 tips, you guys will be able to go out and utilize these on your home body of water to have more success when you're jerkbait fishing during the springtime. Now, if you guys want to see a video where I talk about one of my favorite springtime patterns, click this video right here. If you're not already subscribed, hit the subscribe button down below, or hit this button right here to subscribe yourself to the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching. As I mentioned in the introduction, go down there in the comment section and let me know your favorite jerkbait and jerkbait color combination in the comment section. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Take care, tight lines. God bless. Pursue your passion.